Lucien Dupré played his accordion in the tunnels of the Paris metro the way a sailor trims a sail, feeling for invisible currents. Each morning he slid onto the Line 6 platform at Passy, positioned himself beneath the arch that lent his musettone a golden shimmer, and coaxed the rush-hour travelers into leaving coins, or at least a lingering smile. He knew the acoustics of every station on the line, where the high ceilings at Bir Hakeim let a waltz bloom like champagne, where the tiled throat of Camberon swallowed low notes whole, where a descending arpeggio could make the most jaded commuter lift her eyes from a phone. What he did not know, on the grey February afternoon when the story began, was that sound could open doors never marked on any map. Lucien was leaning against a pillar at La Maupiquet Grenelle, squeezing a plaintive rendition of La Vie en Rose when he heard it. A fragment whistled in 3 ascending bars, minor, major, minor, a question suspended without answer. The melody froze him in mid-chord. It was the opening line of Nocturne des Ombres, an unpublished work by Julian Moreau, the prodigy who had disappeared 10 years earlier after a single scandalous concert at the Opéra Comique. Only 200 people had ever heard that piece, and Lucien was one of them. He had bought a last-minute standing ticket and been changed for life. Since that night, rumors swirled. Moreau dead in the catacombs, fled to South America, or locked in a sanatorium? But no manuscript, no recording, no encore had surfaced. The nocturne lived only in the collective memory of those 200 witnesses, a sacred secret, which meant whoever was whistling it now must have been at that concert too, or be Moreau himself. The whistle drifted down the corridor toward the Line 8 platforms. Lucien closed his case with a snap, muttered an apology to the scattering crowd, and followed. The notes repeated, softer, threaded through the metallic roar of incoming trains. At the foot of an employees-only staircase, the whistler fell silent. Lucien hesitated. A guard might emerge and fine him for trespassing. But curiosity outweighed caution, and he slipped past the chain. The staircase spiraled into a service tunnel lit by bare bulbs. Somewhere water dripped. Lucien pressed forward, accordion dangling awkwardly from his shoulders. After 3 turns, he reached a locked gate made of iron lattice. On the other side lay darkness and, faintly, music. Not a whistle now, but a violin, bowed in tremolo, playing the same unanswered question. A chill rode the length of Lucien's spine. He wrapped his fingers through the lattice. "Bonsoir," he called. "Who's there?" The violin fell silent. Footsteps retreated, then stopped. Something, a card, was slipped between the bars. Lucien reached down and retrieved a small rectangle of vellum embossed with a silver cloth. On its back was a single sentence, handwritten in blue ink. "Pour des lilas qui abandonnent minuit." The ink smelled fresh, as though the author stood only meters away. The bulbs flickered. When they steadied, the footsteps were gone. Lucien found himself alone with the card and a restless heartbeat. He spent the next hours searching online for any mention of a concert, a rehearsal, a prank that might explain what had happened. Nothing. When 12 bells loomed, he packed his accordion, donned his old military coat for warmth, and boarded the last eastbound train. Porte des Lilas had 2 operational platforms and 1 ghost. The Caille Abandonnée was a curiosity sealed since 1935, sometimes rented for film shoots. Its entrance was padlocked, but Lucien noticed a slender man in a peaked cap leaning beside it, smoking with deliberate indifference. Lucien flashed the silver clef card. The man ground out his cigarette, produced a ring of keys, and opened the gate without a word. The platform beyond was swallowed by shadow. Candles, hundreds, floated in glass jars along the disused rails, turning rust into amber. About 30 people sat on overturned crates or old benches, cellists, clarinetists, a pianist at a wheeled cabaret upright, and in the centre, a dais draped in burgundy velvet. Even underground, Paris had style. A woman in a black gown approached. Monsieur Dupré, she said, pronouncing his name with crystalline diction. We are honored. Her hair formed a silver crown around a face too poised to reveal age. I am Madame Lenoir, spokeswoman for La Clé Souterraine. Lucien had heard whispers of that phrase from buskers, a rumoured fraternity of metro performers who protected lucrative corners with violin bows sharpened to points. Yet the scene before him spoke less of turf wars than of ritual. You play accordion? Madame Lenoir asked. He nodded, hugging the instrument defensively. Good, tonight we rehearse Moreau's Nocturne des Ombres. If you know the voice leading, take the second harmony line. If not, listen. At dawn we will perform it for a distinguished audience. Lucien's tongue felt twice its weight. Where did you get the score? It was never published. Madame Lenoir's smile flickered. Some doors open only to those who hear them. Please, take your seat. Lucien groped for a crate near the clarinetist. Sheet music lay on a stand, crisp parchment calligraphed in midnight ink. The title burned, Nocturne des Ombres, Montréal. Every slur, trill, dynamic matched what he had memorized from that lost night. But 2 staves had been added, labeled Contre-melodies et rivés, lines he had never heard. The new measures throbbed with dissonances that tugged at the stomach, like standing too close to a precipice. Madame Lenoir raised her baton. The Subterranean orchestra exhaled as one. They played. The opening chords stretched like velvet under tension. Lucien joined tentatively, his accordion's reeds weaving in and out of the piano. The new contrapuntal threads slithered beneath the main theme, sinister yet hypnotic. As the climax approached, a subtle vibration stirred the air, as though the cement itself resonated. The candles swayed. Dust drifted from the vaulted ceiling, tracing arcs in amber light. When the final chord resolved into silence, Lucien found his legs trembling. Bien, Madame Lenoir murmured. Tomorrow we add the percussion. The surface will listen, whether it wills or no. Musicians packed their instruments. Some chatted in hushed excitement, others avoided eye contact like guilty conspirators. Lucien cornered a violinist, a lanky youth whose sweat dampened his collar. I don't recognize those extra staves, Lucien said. Are they really Moreau's? The youth glanced around. Of course, he attends rehearsals himself sometimes. Tonight? Perhaps behind a pillar listening. They say he changes appearance daily, beard, no beard, wig. Even Madame Lenoir cannot always tell, at a new bass line. The violinist gulped. Because the bass is what opens the city. He hurried off before Lucien could ask more. Opens the city? The phrase gnawed at him during his ride home. He slept poorly, dreaming of arches cracking, Seine water flooding tunnels, while a lone accordion wheezed an endless tritone. Morning brought drizzle. Lucien skipped his usual busking, instead combing libraries for references to La Clé Souterraine. In an out-of-print ethnomusicology thesis, he found a single footnote. Paris has long harboured clandestine confréries de résonance, gatherings that exploit the unique frequencies of catacomb and sewer architecture. Rumours persist of sonic sabotage, collapsed tunnels in 1910, unexplained cave-ins in 1963 attributed to illegal concerts. Sonic sabotage? The Subterranean orchestra's added bass line suddenly looked like a tuning fork aimed at the city's bones. By dusk, Lucien knew only one thing. He had to return. The same guard let him through, the same crowd assembled. This time a battery of percussionists ringed the dais, with bass drums, gongs, and barrels strung with piano wires. Madame Lenoir raised her hands for quiet. Tonight, she said, the surface trembles with war and pestilence. Shops closing, hearts hardened. We will remind them of beauty and of the cost of ignoring it. At sunrise, as trains resume, they will hear Moreau's gift in every tunnel, every cup of coffee, every lie they tell themselves. And if cement shakes, she shrugged elegantly, So be it. Art demands sacrifice. A murmur of devotion swept the crowd. Lucien gripped his accordion. He had loved Moreau's music since that teenage night, but love could curdle when wielded as a weapon. He scanned the platform for a face that might belong to Moreau, perhaps the stooped man adjusting a cello spike, or the girl powdering her nose with stage-frighty hands. None claimed the mantle. Madame Lenoir lifted her baton. The first chord boomed, deeper than before, as drums joined. Lucien felt it in his molars. The candle's flames flattened sideways. Hairline cracks spidered across the wall behind the pianist, dust misting like breath on a cold morning. The music surged, unstoppable. He pictured the metro tunnels, their century-old masonry, already strained, catching the resonance and magnifying it until concrete blossomed into deadly petals of shrapnel. He had to disrupt the piece. But how without drawing suspicion? The score lay before him. The unknown counter-melody slithered between treble and bass like a fuse. If he could play an alternate line, introduce a new interference pattern, he might cancel the frequency. Musical jujitsu. Memory offered a forgotten coda from an earlier Moreau sketch, one Lucien had transcribed from a bootleg audio leak years ago. It was simple, graceful, and in direct phase opposition to the bass doubli. He took a breath. On the repeat of measure 64, instead of the printed notes, Lucien folded the old coda into his bellows. A major seventh where a minor second was expected, a rest where the score demanded sustain. The difference was subtle, plausible as performer's idiosyncrasy. Yet the air responded at once, the oppressive hum slackened. A knife withdrawn half an inch from flesh. Madame Lenoir's baton jerked like a wasp's stung hand. She glared, but momentum carried the ensemble forward. Lucien repeated the deviant phrase, adding ornamentation to widen its wedge. A cymbal missed its cue, confused by the shifting harmonic floor. The pianist stumbled. Drums lost synchronization. The vibration faded, leaving an echo, pitiful instead of apocalyptic. Madame Lenoir cut the orchestra with a savage chop. Silence slammed the platform. Who alters the score? Eesh! He hissed. No one moved. Lucien's pulse hammered so loudly he feared it would betray him. Then a soft laugh floated from the shadowed tunnel mouth. Well done, a voice said. That was the correct inversion. A man stepped into candlelight. He looked unremarkable, mid-40s, linen scarf, stubble that suggested expensive indifference. Only his eyes blazed phosphorescent with sleepless devotion. Gasps rippled through the musicians. Maestre, Madame Lenoir breathed. She knelt. Felix Moreau raised an eyebrow, ignoring her. Who found the inversion? Come, don't be shy. Lucien stood, legs numb. I did, monsieur. I thought the resonance could harm the tunnels. Indeed it could, Moreau said. He strolled in a widening circle as though tasting acoustics. Madame Lenoir, you assured me the modifications were necessary. Please, they were, maestro, she pleaded, to awaken the city, or to shatter it if it stayed asleep. We serve your genius. I asked for awakening, not extortion, Moreau replied, mild but lethal. He turned toward Lucien. You know my earlier drafts. I have studied everything I could find, Lucien admitted. Your music saved my life once. Interesting. Moreau clasped his hands behind his back. You understand that frequencies can buttress walls as well as break them? Paris is a grand instrument. You must choose the chord. Madame Lenoir rose, fury rekindled. We have chosen, maestro. The time for lullabies is over. Tonight we perform as planned. She beckoned to two percussionists, brutish men holding mallets. Moreau sighed. Artisans become arsonists so quickly. The percussionists advanced on Lucien. Instinct hurled him backward. He collided with a cello case. Mallets swung, missing his ribs by centimeters. Musicians scattered, screams muffled by the vast chamber. Lucien sprinted toward the service tunnel, dragging his accordion. A gong crashed behind him. Metal on skull. Someone groaned. He risked a glance. One percussionist lay crumpled, the other wrestled with Moreau, who fought with surprising agility. Madame Lenoir seized the baton like a stiletto and lunged at Lucien, but tripped over a power cable. Candles toppled, wax spilled fire onto papers. The abandoned platform ignited in sudden chaos. Lucien dashed through the gate, up the spiral staircase, heart ricocheting. He emerged onto the public platform, deserted at this late hour, and punched the emergency intercom. "This is Dupré," he panted. "Fire in the abandoned tunnel. Evacuate. Ventilation required immediately." A bored dispatcher began to ask for clarification when a subterranean boom rattled tiles. The intercom cracked into static. Emergency lights flushed the platform crimson. Within minutes, firefighters thundered past, axes in hand. Police sealed the station. Lucien retreated outside, rain hissing on the pavement like applause. He expected arrest, or at least questioning. But dawn broke with only newspaper headlines. "Mystery blaze. In ghost station, no casualties." Officials blamed squatters and faulty wiring. The metro resumed service by mid-morning, albeit with slower speeds around Porte des Lilas. Lucien returned to his usual post at Passy, fingers still quivering. He played La Vienne Rosée half-heartedly until a coin clinked richer than the others. Attached to it by red thread was a parchment scrap. "Thank you for choosing the right chord." Fayen, he looked up. The platform was crowded. Any man might be Moreau, but he sensed the maestro had already slipped away, leaving only harmonics. Weeks passed. Talk of clandestine orchestras faded. Madame Lenoir disappeared, her address vacated. The other musicians melted back into street corners and bar backs. The story sank beneath the city's 100 other intrigues. Yet sometimes, late at night when the last train moaned, Lucien heard a faint whistle threading the tunnel. A question, still unanswered, but no longer alone in the dark. He would raise his accordion and offer the inversion and the echo. That followed felt less like danger than dialogue, for he had learned what the vanished composer already knew, that Paris, hollow as a violin, would always vibrate to those brave enough to play it, and that every note holds two possibilities, one to break stone, one to bind it. The choice belongs not to the score, but to the hands on the keys, the breath in the bellows, the heart keeping time. Lucien kept playing. And under the city, somewhere beyond sight, Félix Moreau kept listening.